Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today we're doing our 5th installment, if you can believe it, of our question and answer series, and we're just going to go ahead and jump on into it. Mike Perkins wanted to know, is there any word on the Reliant release for Hangar Ready? I think CIG's had a little bit of a crisis of sorts trying to determine what's going to be the next Hangar Ready ship. At first, we thought it was going to be the Reliant, then we heard all of a sudden the Starfarer was going to be out really quickly, and most recently now we've heard the Kar-2 is said to be the next Hangar-ready ship. So, who knows? I mean, some of the animations may be similar enough between the Kar-2 and the Reliant, meaning they might come out at the same time. I'm not holding my breath for that. I think we're probably just going to need to play the wait-and-see game because I'm kind of tired of just speculating about what's going to actually be next. I still think the Starfarer is going to be pretty damn quick, considering they said that they wanted to have it out before the end of January, and we're now in February. So I don't know. I think we're going to see a bunch hit the hangar very quickly. I think the Reliant, the Starfarer, and the Kar-2 are all probably going to end up being hangar ready by the end of February would be my best guess. But it's hard to really commit to that, considering I don't have any additional inside knowledge, as much as I wish I did, than you guys do. So probably into February, but we shall see. Spec Schwartz and Lock AC04 both asked questions about the whole series, if there was any news about it. Spec wanted to know specifically about the whole C. There hasn't been a whole lot of, emphasis put on the whole series recently. The most recent thing that I saw was that it's done with concept and it hasn't moved into white boxing or any sort of modeling at this point. And I can't say I'm really surprised, because when you consider what we currently have available in-game, there's not really any cargo mechanics outside of hauling noodles around. And when you consider what's going to be a priority in Squadron 42, it's going to be combat-oriented ships, whether that be support ships like a Starfarer or whether that be an actual fighter like the Vanguard or the Saber. Like, that's where we're going to see the development really taking priority right now. The whole series may be in Squadron 42, but my guess is they're going to be more just background animations as they kind of fly around the map, kind of to be environmental, but you're not going to be serving on a whole sea, at least to my knowledge, in the campaign. So I wouldn't expect to see them real soon, especially since I haven't seen anything from CIG about modeling head starting, so we're probably a little ways out. Gabriel Cuff says, Youngblood, I've just been wondering about the Reliant variants and which one to get. He's basically between the Tana and the Sen. Wants to use the Tana for escorting and the Sen for research, but he's not sure how profitable researching is going to end up being. I mean, I think that's a really fair question, because when we start talking about some of these mechanics, we don't know what they're going to be able to do. Some things like being a medical professional, maybe more of a support operation for an organization as opposed to a moneymaker. Then again, you look at the world today, and some of the richest people in the world, well, not in the world, but a lot of rich people are doctors. So we don't really know how it's going to play out. And you can kind of make the same argument here for the Tana. If you're talking about where the profit's going to be between escorting versus researching, we don't really know where that money's going to be or which one's going to be favored. If you're taking, ultimately, let's put it this way, it's going to come down to how proficient you are at whatever you're trying to do. So if you're an excellent escorter, you could probably be hired at higher rates. Or if you're a really good researcher and you can find and discover really cool new things or use that to maybe overclock components, then you're going to be able to make more of a profit off of it. I think the skill for a lot of these roles is going to directly correlate to the currency that you end up bringing in. So if I was to pick between one of those, I would probably choose the... Oh, God, I don't know. I'm probably going to make a bad recommendation here just because I prefer the combat side. So I would say I'd personally take the Tana. But, I think for more in-depth gameplay, if you kind of want to get into a little bit more role-playing, the Sen at least gives you the ability to kind of live on the line between researcher and explorer. And I think that may give you the versatility that might make you prefer that ship over the other. Edward Kuhn says, Youngblood, I am a pilot who likes an aggressive way of flying but doesn't like fighting. And he kind of laughs about that, which is fine. I'm considering getting into the role of information stealer runner or any other unique job. Should I consider upgrading into a Drake Herald? Yeah. I mean, I think being an info runner is going to be a really entertaining way to play this game. And I think I think the Herald is going to be one of those ships that's going to be really fun to fly. It's goofy. It's got a nice design to it. I think there's enough about the Herald that says this ship is going to be a lot of fun, even if you have to kind of find some borderline unconventional ways to use it. As far as the way you can fly it, I think as far as that reckless way of flying that you're thinking about, I think for the most part, a Herald is going to be best suited kind of standing off a little bit and using the array that it has on there to steal the information from a distance, and then use the engines to get away if you are pursued. I think that's where you're going to see some of that aggressive style. But if you're doing it right, you might not even have to use it at all. You might be able to just sit there with your engines off, keep your signature really low, steal the information, and people may not even see you or know that you got into their system. So, I think one thing that you could consider, though, is I think the Herald also gives the ability to race with. It's a relatively small ship. It's also going to be incredibly fast. So you do get a little bit of versatility in that regard. And it could also make a good courier. And I think from being like a courier, I think that's where you get into that aggressive standpoint. So, yeah, I mean, I would feel relatively comfortable suggesting the Herald for you. The other part of that question you asked was, can you use an Endeavor to steal information with its big and hot antenna? As far as the antenna goes on that ship, I think it's more of a telescope type of antenna. I don't think you're going to be able to really be doing a whole lot of information stealing with it. Now, it's worth noting that there's a lot of customization that you can do on an Endeavor, but if you're specifically talking about info running and like info running and data stealing and hacking and all that kind of stuff, like borderline electronic warfare, I don't envision it being that ship. I think it's more of like a satellite dish type of antenna versus a, you know what I mean? It's more of an imagery type device. And you also say, I'm glad you do care about us. I do. You guys are a big part of my life. I enjoy doing this a lot, and it's a lot of fun to interact with you guys. Tominator says, do you know if we're going to be able to share one hangar with some of your friends so you can see all of you and your friends' ships in one hangar? I don't know if we're going to be able to share hangars with just friends. That being said, we do know that organizational hangars are something that's going to be coming. So if you guys were to get in an organization together, then yes, you could probably make that happen. My hunch says that you would probably be able to land in a friend's hangar if there's space. So if you pay for, 3 sections of a hangar and you're only using 2 of them, then somebody else could then land in your hangar. I think something like that we could see something like that could happen. But I don't think it's going to be like Bill and Ted share a hangar just because they're friends or something like that. I think it's going to be more focused toward that organization side. But either way, you're going to be able to go into each other's hangars and kind of explore other ships and that sort of thing. Adam says, how will the Endeavor Hope work with your organization? Any strategies you already have in place, or are you waiting until it's released? We do own an organizational hope. This isn't like, we've got other people in the organization that have hopes, but sometimes we pool money together to buy ships that we think is going to be a good fit, and the hope definitely fit into that category. One thing that I think is going to be very helpful with the Hope, along with the Cutlass Red, is that they almost become a force multiplier, especially if you're talking about on-foot type of mechanics. Because if you're able to rescue your people, bring them back to health, and then get them in the fight, that is a huge benefit to any organization. So we do plan to have a hospital ship with us if we're going into heated battles. Now, it's obviously a little bit of a liability because you need to keep it protected, but that's something that we can do. Another one that we were talking about doing was potentially taking a Hope to a known battlefield, knowing that it can be a spawn location. So if there's a couple organizations that are going to town on each other, or perhaps we know that the Vandal are engaging the UEE in a certain sector of space, it kind of makes sense to take a Hope to that location, because then people may end up being able to respawn on your ship for a cost, and potentially even take a ship from your ship at a higher cost. So there's things that you can do in there. But I think some of the most fun mechanics I've been thinking about, and if there's a ship I don't have that I've been thinking about getting, has been the Cutlass Red, because there's something that sounds really exciting about zooming in, rescuing somebody, then docking on an even bigger ship to drop them off, and then rinsing and repeating. Talking about the Endeavor as the hospital and the Red as the ambulance, that sounds like a hell of a lot of fun to me. So I think there's a lot of benefit and a lot of just kind of entertainment that you can get out of having a Hope in your, within your fleet. LOL, you're raged? Oh, LOA, you... Laugh out loud, you raged. Okay, I got it. Hey, Youngblood, I'm interested in getting into the hauling of cargo in this game, but currently I'm very iffy on whether or not to actually get into the game. Goes on to say that he hasn't played it. If he was to play it, he would probably do cargo hauling or get a reclaimer to go get some wreckage. Just very hesitant to pull the trigger since it's a giant ship for less than one person. So with the ships, I think cargo hauling is going to be just kind of the money maker in the game. Is it going to be the most exciting aspect of the game? Probably not, but I think it's going to be entertaining, especially when you have to kind of use your head and make the right decisions as far as where you want to go and where you want to buy and where you want to sell. Things like being in a reclaimer could be a lot of fun too. But here's the deal. You're talking about having one person. And if you're talking about just having one person, then the bigger ships become a little bit more difficult. Now remember, you're never going to be obligated to have other people to use, your bigger ships. You can always hire NPCs. Now that's going to end up coming at a little bit of a cost, but if you have real life friends that were playing with you anyways, that's going to come at a cost too, because you're going to have to cut them in. Not a whole lot of people are going to want to just sit on your ship and give you a whole lot of profit, and they're not making anything during that process. So, I think maybe a good option for you would be, maybe like a whole B. It's still a single-seater ship. It carries a boatload of cargo, and you could get into that, and still make a lot of money on it. If you want something that is solo capable but still able to do cargo and we have a little bit more versatility, I think the Freelancer would be a really, really good option. Ultimately, though, one of the things that you put in there is, that you ideally would like to have a Reclaimer and Orion and jump into an organization. I think whether you join PXP or Explore or Test or really any organization, I think everybody would find a lot of value in being part of an organization. Not only are you going to have people with similar interests and similar game styles and probably times that you're playing. I think that also means that you're going to just have people that are willing to help you out inherently because you've got that team spirit type of feeling. So I would say for you, if you've got aspirations of having a bigger ship, but you want to be able to play with other players, absolutely get into an organization because that's going to be the best way to get people into your ship, helping you out, and kind of running as a crew. Scott Jacobs says, hey, love your videos, big fan. I'm just wondering, how do you think the slavery will work in the game? I'm not really interested in doing it, but I'm interested in it because there seems to be nothing on slavery or how it will work in game. Yeah, slavery is one of those interesting ones because we don't have a lot of information about it. We have mentions about it. There's talk about your character being captured and sold into slavery, or there's mentions of how the most despised people in the galaxy are slave traders, but they're not to be tangled with because you can't trust them, and et cetera, et cetera. It's been mentioned in the lore, and it's been mentioned in some of the design posts, so I think it is going to come. Now, how does that all work? What happens if you do get sold into slavery? Well, that probably is going to be the end of your life, and then you move on to one of your descendants, because I don't think... Well, and who knows? Maybe it gets more advanced. Maybe you get a chance to try and escape, or if you decide to go into slavery, then you can allow your organization mates to come and save your ass or something like that. I don't know how it's going to work. My hunch is, though, if you're sold in as a slave, you're probably done with that character. I think there's going to be a lot of probably missions that you can take on to go hunting slavers, especially since the lore kind of sets them up to be kind of a despised character. I think that's going to be a lot of availability in going out and killing them or bringing them to justice or setting the slaves free. It's probably going to be, tied to the experience of the game. You're probably not going to be really trading in slaves a whole lot, although it is a possibility. I mean, in Elite Dangerous you get to slave trade if you want to, but ultimately it's they're in canisters that are in your cargo hold, which is kind of cold-blooded, but it is there. So I think it's something we're going to see. Just how in-depth it ends up being, I'm not positive. Caleb Harabrine says, will there be robots in Star Citizen so they can man a ship? In a way, NPCs are kind of robots, but I know that's not what you're getting at. You're probably talking about like a Chappie or an R2-D2 or something that you could hire to fly a ship for you, and I don't think we're going to see that right away. I think it's going to focus mostly on real players or simulated people. I think when we start talking about the percentages, real players are only supposed to be 10% of the real population of the game. So with that in mind, I think that means there's going to be a lot of already quote-unquote people in the persistent universe that we're going to have interactions with, and I think that's going to be the primary focus on development and gameplay and how we interact with the AI in the game. So maybe at some point we start seeing some like artificial intelligence in the form of robots, but I don't think we're going to get that right away. Merchant Ivory said, I would love to hear you talk about those of us who want to captain those capital ships and possibly how to go about that route, because from my vague search there isn't a whole lot of information on the subject. How do you obtain one? How do you maintain? How do you find the crew? It would seem you have to be the leader of an org or know 40 plus people you would like to be on your crew. Yeah, capital ships are going to be tough to figure out if you're not part of an organization. Being a part of an organization is going to be a really big benefit for people that have capital ships. You know, whether that be an Idris, a Javelin, if you somehow are able to capture a bangle or repair a bangle, you're going to need to know a lot of people. Now, could you potentially go and hire a bunch of NPCs to run around your ship for you? Yeah, you probably can, but there's probably going to be some certain level of management that's required over NPCs. And having to manage that number of NPCs on your ship is probably going to be a pain in the ass. So it's really, I think, going to be more focused on people that have the friends or the organizational mates that are able to kind of help you out. So how do you obtain one? Through the sales right now, you can, well, not right now, but when they pop up, you can buy an Idris, you can buy a Javelin, if you're in the numbers that are allotted. In the persistent universe, you can earn your way up to one. In the persistent universe, you could steal one. Or in the persistent universe, if you find a derelict, you can repair it, and then it's yours. So there's different ways that you can get one. It's probably going to be challenging to get one, whether that's a time constraint or whether that be a difficulty in overrunning one to steal it, or it's probably going to be very expensive to repair one. As far as maintaining it goes, an Idris and a Javelin, to my knowledge, or not to my knowledge, an Idris and a Javelin will be able to be, docked. You can log off and not have to worry about it. You're going to have to be able to maintain it through repairs, refueling, which is going to be really expensive, and rearming. So if you're firing the big-ass railgun out of the bottom of the Idris, it's going to cost you a lot of money to refill the ammunition. When we start talking about the bigger options, like the Bangle Carrier, it is persistent. So if you and everybody on the ship log out, the ship just sits there, which means somebody could very easily steal it from you. So unless you have friends around the world that are willing to continue to help maintain the ownership of that ship, it's going to be challenging to have something like that. That's probably going to be fairly exclusive to some of the really, really large organizations or the military. As far as finding the crew, if you do have plans or you do get one and you don't already have an organization, I would say join one or start one of your own, with that being kind of the carrot. Come join and be a crewman on my Idris or something like that. Because there's going to be a lot of people that just want to take on a crew role almost as just a, like a role-playing type of aspect. So I think that's where we're going to lead this off. We're already hitting the 18.5-minute mark on this video. We're pretty damn close to it. So we're going to go ahead and cut it off. I'll probably try and get another one of these recorded and out pretty soon. But I think that we're almost through the first batch of questions off of the initial video. But please keep them coming. On all of these videos that I'm posting with answers, I'm going to be looking for there next for more questions. So if you have anything you want to know, get them in. Otherwise, just stay tuned for more content. As always, I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.